Hey there, how's it going everybody? In this video, we're going to add a little more functionality to our application and to our posts. So we're going to add some pagination so that we aren't pulling down too many posts at once. And also we're going to learn how to sort posts by newest to oldest. So let's go ahead and get started. So first of all, since we're going to be working with pagination, I'm going to take a second to add more posts to our current application from a variety of different users. That way we have enough posts to see what the pagination looks like. So I'm going to fast forward through this so that you don't have to watch me enter a lot of different data. Now, if you'd like to follow along, then you could create some additional posts of your own. You'll only need about 10 or so to see this in action. And I'll also leave a link in the description section below to the JSON of my sample post that I'll be creating here if you want to use those sample titles and content that I'm going to be using in this video. So I'm going to add some new posts now and pick up the video when that is complete. Okay, so I have added some sample posts to our application and should have a total of 25 now. And we can see that if I scroll down through these, so I'll scroll all the way down here towards the bottom, then it's kind of a lot of information to have on a single page. Now, if these posts had images included in them and things like that, then loading them all in at once like this could really slow down our application. It would be better if we could paginate this so that we can load a certain number of posts on one page and then display links at the bottom of the page to the other pages of the post. So luckily, flask-sqlalchemy makes this easy for us with the paginate method. So let's open up our routes and see how we can get this to work. So I'm going to pull up our application here, and I already have my routes.py file opened. So we can see that currently in our home route, we're simply doing a post.query.all to get all of the posts, but we want to paginate these. So in place of using the all method to run this query, we can use the paginate method. So let me run this in the command line so that we can see what this looks like. So I'm going to pull up my command line here and shut down our development server using Control-C. Then I'll clear the screen and I'm going to start up our Python interpreter. So now let's import our post model. So I'll say from flask-blog.models import post. And now let's see what this paginate looks like. So let me clear the screen here. And we've currently been doing queries like this. So we've been saying post is equal to post.query.all. And then we can loop through the post by saying for post in posts, and then let's just print that post. So we can see here that we get all 25 of the sample posts that I added. But now let's see what we get when we do a post.query.paginate. So I'm going to clear the screen here, and I'm going to go back to where we did our query. And instead of using .all, I'm going to use .paginate. And now let's look at this post variable. So it says that this is a pagination object. Now let's see what attributes and methods this object has. So if we use the dir function, then it will print all of these out. So if I run that, then we can see here that there aren't very many, and some of these are hard to read because they get cut in half off the screen. But we have has next, has previous, items, page, and things like that. So this is an object that gives us information about the current page that we're on, how many posts there are per page, and all kinds of information. So let's look at the per page attribute. So I will say post.per_page, and we can see that that results in 20. And 20 is the default per page since we didn't pass anything in. So if we look at the current page, so I'll say post.page, and we can see that the current page is 1. So we're on the first page. So we'll look more at these attributes and methods in just a second, but the important one here is the items for this page. So to print out the individual posts like we did before, we can now say for post in post.items, and then we can print out the posts. And if we were to count up these posts, then we would count that there are 20 of them here, and the last 5 are on the second page. Now, if we wanted to get that second page of items, then we could run the same query again, but specify the page being equal to 2. So I will hit up until we rerun that paginate query. And let me clear the screen here. So we're rerunning that paginate query, but instead, let me pass in an argument of page equal to 2 and run that. And now let's rerun the loop where we're looping through the items. So if I loop through those and print those out, then we can see that we only get 5 posts, and that's because this is the second page. So that first page has 20 posts, and then this second page only has the last 5 posts. Now, if 20 is too much, then we can actually get fewer per page if we wanted to. So if we reran the query, so instead of passing in a page equal to 2, I'm going to pass in a per page equal to 5 and run that. And actually, let me clear this out so it's a little easier to see. And I'll rerun that query where we have 5 per page. So now let's see what page we are currently on. So we can say post.page, and we're currently on page 1. And if I print that first page, so I'll loop through those. So I'll rerun a loop and print out the post for those items. And we can see that we get 5 values. And these are the first 5 posts that are returned. Now I can pass in a page equal to 2 to get the next page of 5. So if I rerun this query and pass in a page equal to 2, and now if we check the page, then we can see that we're on the second page. And if I loop through these again and print those out, then these are 5 different posts. Now, if we wanted to see the total number of posts in all of the pages, then we can use the total attribute. So if I clear this, if I say post.total, then we get 25. Okay, so now let's go back to our app and see how we can use this. So I will go back to my routes.py file. So now let's actually use that in our application. So instead of doing a query for all the posts, we're instead going to do a paginate and use the paginate method. And we'll set the number of posts per page equal to 5. That way our pages don't get too crowded. So I'll say per page is equal to 5. And right now, this will always get the first page of posts since we're not specifically asking for a specific page. And in order to get other pages, we'll do this by passing query parameters in the URL. And we've seen that earlier in the series when we did the login redirect query parameter. So to grab the page that we want, let's just get that from a query parameter in the URL by saying page is equal to, and that is request.args.get, and we want to get the page, and also that is an optional parameter in the URL. So let's also set a default, and we'll set the default page of 1, and let's also set a type equal to int. And setting the type equal to int will cause our site to throw a value error if someone passes anything other than an integer as a page number. And now we can pass that page into our query by saying page is equal to page, and then we'll just keep that per page of 5 there. Okay, so now let's also make a change to our home.html template. So I'm going to open my templates here and open this home.html template. And instead of saying for post in post, remember that this is now a pagination object, and instead we have to say for post in post.items. Okay, so now let's save all of this and see if it works in the browser. So I've saved these files, and now let me open up my command line here, and I'll exit out of the Python interpreter. And now I will run the development web server by saying python run.py. Open this up in the browser. Okay, so I reloaded the home page, and if I scroll down, then we can see that I only have 5 posts on our home page. Now, we don't have any links to get to the next pages, but we'll fix that in just a bit. But for now, if I manually pass a URL parameter, then we should be able to see the other pages. Now, this might be hard to see, but in my URL bar here, I can pass this URL parameter by saying page is equal to 2. And if we run that, then we can see that now we get the next 5 posts. So this should go all the way up to page 5. So if I typed in page 5 here, then we can see that I have a latest post down here at the bottom. If I type in page 6, then we can see that that is not found because that page does not exist. So I'll go back to our home page now. So now let's update our template so that we can see the links to the other pages. Now, just to demonstrate how these links look, I think I'm going to want a lot of pages to link to, because right now we're only going to have 5 pages, and I'd like to have a lot more than that. So in order to get a lot of pages just temporarily, I'm going to temporarily change our per page argument here, and I'm going to change that from 5 to 2 and save that. Now that should give us around, let's see, I think 13 pages of 2 posts, and I'll change that back to 5 after we have everything working. And just to show how this is going to work, let me jump back to the command line again, and I will close down our terminal there, our development server, and I'm going to rerun the Python interpreter. And now let me import the post model again. So I'll say from flask-blog.models import post, and now let's do another pagination query. And I'm going to run a query where we're on about page 6 of those 13 pages. So I'll say post is equal to post.query.paginate, and I will say that we're on page 6, and that will be a per page of 2. So now let me clear the screen here, and now I'm going to see what is printed when we loop through this method called iter pages. So I'm going to say for page in post.iter_pages, and then I will print out that page variable. So this may look a little strange, but it prints out a 1, 2, and then a none, and then 4 through 10, and then another none value, and then 12 and 13. So you may have seen on websites before where if there are a lot of pages, the website will just show you what page you're currently on, and then a few pages before and after with an ellipses or something like that. And that is what this none value represents. So this will make a lot more sense once we actually render this in our template and we see what this looks like. But basically, these numbers it is showing here will be links to other pages that we can navigate to. Now, I personally think that this is too many links here, and we can narrow this down by passing in arguments to the iter pages method, and we can specify how many pages we want to see at the beginning and the end, as well as how many pages close to the current page. So let's add this code to our template, and this will be more clear. So I'm going to open back up our home.html template. And below our post, I'm going to add another for loop to loop over these pages. So I am going to open up a for loop here and also close this for loop here. And this for loop will say for page num in post.iter_pages. And then inside of this loop, we'll create links to these pages. And remember, there can be none values here as well. And we'll just display those as ellipses. So we'll say, open up a code block here and say, if page num, then we can end this if statement here. And let me also indent this to where it's obvious that we're inside the for loop. And I'm also going to want an else statement for this if. So I will say else. Now, if page num, then we want to put a link to that page number. But if page num is none, then it's going to fall down here to this else statement. And that is where we will put the ellipses. But if a page num is not none, then we want that to be a link to our page. And we can add that by saying that we want an anchor tag, and this anchor tag can link to, and I'm going to put in double curly braces here to put in some code, and we want to link to the URL for the home page, and we also want to pass in the page equal to the page num that we're currently on, and we want the text for this link to be double curly braces again and pass in that page num. And let me also add some classes to this anchor tag as well so that this looks a little nicer. So I will add some classes here. I'll add a class of button and also button outline-info, which is a nice bluish color. And we'll also give these a margin to space them out a little bit. So we'll do an MB-4 and save that. Okay, so if we save what we have and reload this in our browser, so I have everything saved, I'm going to exit out of the Python interpreter and rerun our Python development server and pull up our website here. So if I reload our home page, then we can see that we only have 2 posts per page. And the reason that I did that is so that we'd have 13 pages here. And now I'm going to go to page 6. So we can see that these pagination links are working down here in the bottom. If we click on one of these pages, then it goes to that specific page. Up here in the URL, we can see that it is passing in a page parameter of page equal to 13. This is page equal to 2, and this is page equal to 6. Now we can see down here at the bottom, it's giving us a lot of links to a lot of different pages. And the reason that the ellipses are useful is because if we had hundreds of pages, then we wouldn't want to display hundreds of links. We'd only want, some at the beginning and also some around our current page. Now, I personally think that this is too many links, but like I said, we can customize this by passing in some arguments to the iterPages method. Also, it'd be nice if the current page had a different style so that it was more obvious what page we're on, because right now we're on page 6, but we can't really tell just by looking at this list here. So let's go add those changes, and we will add those to our home template. So I'm back in my home template here and down in our iterPages loop. And now let me pass in a few arguments here to iterPages. So I'm going to say left_edge is equal to 1, and that is how many will show up on the far left of the links. I'll say right_edge is equal to 1, and that's how many pages show up on the right side of the links. So I'll also say left_current is equal to 1, and that is how many pages left of the current page will show up. And we'll see what all this looks like in just a second. And then I'll also say right_current, and I'm going to set that equal to 2 because the right current includes the current page. So that should limit how many links are actually showed at the bottom of the page. And also let's add another conditional to style our current page a little different than the other links. So we can come down here into our for loop, and I'm going to paste another conditional here within this if page num. So if we have a page number, then I'm going to put another conditional and say if post.page, which would be the current page, is equal to the page number, then we want to style that link a little differently. But we also have to put in an else statement here and also end that if. So I will copy all of those and put those in. So let me copy this link here and also put this into our else block of this if conditional. And now if the page that we're currently on is equal to the page number in our loop, then we want this to look a little different. So I'm just going to have that be a filled in button. So to do that in Bootstrap, the button outline info will be what we saw earlier, that outlined bluish color. If we take away the outline part and just do button-info, then that will be a solid blue color. So that should be good for filling in our current page. Okay, so now if we save that and reload it in our browser, so let's make sure our web server is still running, and it is. And now let me reload page 6 here. And if we go down to the bottom, we can see that now page 6 is filled in, so it has a different style than the other pages. And you can also see that we don't have so many links down here at the bottom anymore. We only have one on the left, which is that left edge, one on the right, which is that right edge, and then shows one to the left of the current page and one to the right of the current page. So that's a lot better. And if we wanted to see what this looked like in different conditions, then we can just click through and see what different pages look like. Okay, so now the pagination is done. So now let's change the posts per page back to a higher number so that we don't have these 2 posts per page like this, because that's just too few. So I'm going to go back to our routes, and I'm going to change that per page and set that back equal to 5, because I think 5 posts per page is usually pretty good. Okay, so now that that pagination is complete, let's add another useful feature. So if I navigate to the first page of our web app and reload this, then for those of you who have followed along with this series, you might notice that the post here at the top is the very first post that I wrote. So that means that the oldest posts are being shown at the top and the newer posts are being shown at the bottom. And this likely isn't how you'd want an application like this to work. You'd likely want the newer posts at the top and the older ones at the bottom. So getting this to work is super simple. All we have to do is reorder these in our query. So if I wanted the newest post to be first, then if I change these around, if I go to the very bottom here, then I have a post here that says my latest post. And I want that to be the very first post on my website whenever I reorder these. So in order to do this, I'm going to open up our routes.py, and then we can go to where we're doing our query. And right before we do the pagination query here, I'm going to add in something else. So I'm going to say post.query.order_by, and I'm going to pass in what we want to order by here. And we want to order by post.date_posted.descending. And that descending is a DESC with the parentheses there. So now that we have post.query.orderby with what we want to order by, then we can just add our paginate onto the end of that. So all of that, and then .paginate with our options there at the end. So if I close my sidebar down here, then we should be able to see this whole line. There we go. So now if we save this page and reload it in our browser, then our web server is still running, so that's good. And now let me rerun our application. And now we can see the latest post that I made is titled My Latest Post at the very top, and it's now the first post that we see. So this is how you can sort your results through SQLAlchemy. Okay, so there's one more thing that I'd like to do before we finish up this video. So if we look at the application that we have so far, then we can see that the username of the user who made the post is currently a link, but it doesn't actually go anywhere. So let's build a route that will display only the posts from these particular users when you click on those links. So first, let's create a route, and this will be similar to our home route. So I'm just going to copy that as a starting point. So here in our routes, I will copy this home route, and I'm just going to paste this down here at the bottom of our routes to create a new route here. And now we'll change this to the route that we want it to be. So I'm going to get rid of one of these app.routes. I only meant to grab one of those. And so we will make this route /user/ and now the user's username. Now this is going to be a dynamic parameter here. So just like our post ID, we will create a variable, and this is going to be a string instead of an integer. So we'll say str : and now the variable name. So this will just be username. And we also need to post this in to our route now. And we also need to change this function name. So I'm going to change this function name to user_post, because this is going to be a route where we just show all the posts for this specific username. Now the query that we're using is going to be mostly the same, but we're going to need to query for this specific user first and then grab the post only by them. So first I'm going to get this user. So I'll say that the user is equal to user.query.filterby. And we want to filter by the username being equal to the username that is going to come from the route itself. And now, instead of doing a dot first, this is going to be like that dot get or 404. This is going to be dot first underscore or 404. And basically that just says get the first user with this username. And if you get a none, then just return a 404, not found error. And like I said, that's very similar to the get version that we saw of that in previous videos, except this isn't searching by ID. So now that we have that user, now we can filter our post by this username if one was found. Now we're going to add to our post query here, but this is getting a little long, so we can actually break these up. If we put a backslash at the end of the line here, then we can break these up onto multiple lines. And I'm going to do this before our order by as well, because we are going to put in a filter there. So we can say post.query.filterby, and we can filter by the author equaling the user that we just got. Then we're using this backslash to break this up onto a different line since this was getting a little long. And then we're doing an order by with the post in descending order by the date posted. And then another backslash to break it up on another line, and then we're doing our paginate query there. So kind of a long query, but that should work. So now instead of sending these posts to our home template, let's create another template for this specific user. And I'll call this template user post.html. And I'll also pass in the user. And we'll create this in just a second, but I'll go ahead and render this template now. So I will render user underscore post. And then we will pass in the post to that template like we're already doing. And we also want to pass in the user into that template. And now I'm going to open up our sidebar so that I can create this template. And I will create that now. So I'll create user underscore post.html. And like I said, this is going to be similar to our home route. So I'm going to copy our home template and paste that in as a starting point. So I'm going to grab all of that and paste it in to our user post page. And the difference here will be that I'll be adding a heading at the top specifying that this is this user's page. So I'm going to do this below the content block, but above our for loop here. So I'll just set this equal to an h1, and I will give this a class to give it a little bit of padding. So I'll say margin bottom with a value of 3. And now within this h1, I'll say post by, and then double curly braces to specify a variable here. Then we'll say user.username. And then in parentheses here, I'll also put the total post that this user has. So parentheses and then double quotes again. And we will say, if we remember, this is post.total. And that'll give the total number of posts even over the paginated links. Now the post for loop will mostly stay the same, but we can actually set the href for the user to now go to the user post route that we just created. So down here on line 9, where we have this pound sign as the href, let's actually do a double curly brace and do a URL for, and we want this to be the URL for that user post route that we just created. Then we want to pass in a comma and also pass in the username variable, and the username will be equal to the post.author.username. And we have this link in our home and our post template as well, so we have to change those there also. Now, having that code repeated in multiple locations isn't best practice, and it's for that specific reason because you have to update it in multiple places. But we'll fix that in a future video when we see how to use subtemplates for repeated sections like this. So we are going to get around to improving that, but for now, let's go ahead and just update those templates. So that was the home template and the post template. So we need to change that URL there as well. So right here where we have this post username, I'm going to paste in that URL for the user post with the username set to that post.author.username and save that. I'll also change that in our post.html template, and that is going to be here on line 7 where we have that post.author.username. I will paste in that URL for link. Now, if I go back to my user post template here, then we also need to change something with the pagination links at the bottom as well, because these pagination links should no longer be linking to our homepage because these are paginated links for this user's specific posts. So we need to change both of these to be linking to the user post route. And we also need to pass in that username like we've just did a second ago and set that equal to user.username, put in a comma there, and I will also paste this in right below here. Okay, so now let's save this and open it in our browser and see what this functionality looks like. So let me make sure our web server is still running and it needs to be restarted. Okay, and it looks like we're getting an error when we're trying to start up our web server this time. And I think I know what this is. This says str does not exist. And this is because in our routes, whenever I specified that type, so I'll go back to my routes, this should actually be string spelled out and not str. So that was my mistake. So let me try to restart our development server now. And now we can see we're not getting any errors and our development server is running. So let's reload our web page here. And now let's try to go to one of these specific users' pages to see all of their posts. So now we can see at the top of this page, it says post by Corey MS, and that there are 16 total. And the pagination here should just be the pagination for this user's post. So you can see that we don't see any of the other users' posts on this page. And if I go back to the home page and go to this user's page, then this user has a total of 9 posts, so he should have 2 pages total. So if we go down here to the bottom, we can see he has 2 pages. Click on that, and he has 4 posts on the second page. So we can see that those user pages are working well, and that they also have pagination working for the posts on those pages also. Okay, so I think that is going to do it for this video. I hope that now you have a good idea for how you can get pagination working on your website and the different ways in which you can create links and handle the logic for those in your application. And also we learned how to sort our posts by either the newest or the oldest entries, and also created a useful route for posts written by specific users. Now, in the next video, we'll be learning how to send emails and how we can use that to reset a user's password. But if you have any questions about what we covered in this video, then feel free to ask in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to answer those. And if you enjoy these tutorials and would like to support them, then there are several ways you can do that. The easiest way is to simply like the video and give it a thumbs up. And also, it's a huge help to share these videos with anyone who you think would find them useful. And if you have the means, you can contribute through Patreon, and there's a link to that page in the description section below. Be sure to subscribe for future videos, and thank you all for watching.